Hello and welcome back to Hold On I'm Talking Brother. My name is Joe Greenwood and you are listening to our preview of the Derrick Lewis vs Sergey Spivak Fight Night card. We're a week removed from UFC 281, which was probably the card of the year, and Tom, you are my regular co-host and you are frothing at the mouth to keep digging in to the carcass of that card. Have you managed, by the way, to watch the early prelims yet of that card?
Joe, there's so much content out there, I haven't got down to the prelims. We didn't get into that in the last episode. Was there something you wanted to bring our attention to?
Mostly the tremendous performance of Carlos Ulberg, but we'll save that for another time. Tom, 281, probably the card of the year, I think, in hindsight.
Yeah. I mean, you said it in the intro, and I have to concur. Of course, it's the freshest in the mind, being so proximate to where we are now. And honestly, Joe, looking ahead at this fight night, my eyes, they've been drawn back to that event in Madison Square Garden. Nothing to do with it. Derrick Lewis, Sergey Spivak, main event, of course.
We love the Spiv.
But yeah, it was fantastic. You know, so many talking points and a bit of fallout that's been coming through. Of course, we've had the update in rankings now too.
Yeah.
Where do we begin?
Can we look at the pound for pound rankings? Because I think really in the last couple months they've been made a bit of a mockery of.
There's all sorts of chicanery going on there, Joe.
So where is Adesanya ranked in the pound for pound rankings?
Above the man who's knocked him out twice and beat him by decision once, Alex Pereira, who comes in at 8. Adesanya, he's dropped down 4 places. Ngannou, though, he got the bump. Does it mean something? Is something written? Is Ngannou going to come back?
I mean, maybe. I'm still questioning whether John Jones even comes back at this stage, never mind Ngannou. So,
what about Stipe, Joe?
I think Stipe might have retired, to be honest.
He has vanished from the pound-for-pound rankings.
Yeah, that's fine. I think he should just retire. His legacy is set. Anyway, we're going tangentially off here. I think the rankings, as per usual, have been shown to be nonsense, Tom, with these pound-for-pound rankings. Really, I don't think there's anyone clear on that who is, top of the list other than Volkanovski.
Well, what is hilarious about these rankings, Joe? You've got your top 7. Volkanovski, unblemished, number one.
Absolutely correct. Fine.
Yeah. Now, he was kind of in the running with Kamaru Usman.
Yep.
Head kicked by Leon Edwards.
Where's he now?
He's down at 4.
Where's Edwards?
He's up at 3.
Is he?
Yes.
Oh, tremendous.
Charles Oliveira was the other man mentioned in the conversation. Could he be the P for P? Promptly submitted by Islam Makhachev, who's gone in at number 2 now. Yep. And the other man who people were talking about up there was Israel Adesanya, who goes and gets knocked out by Pereira. So it's all turmoil, Joe. When you look at it like that, it's been quite the year. Some icons have fallen.
Yeah, is it? We've had more title changes this year than any other in the last 10. It's been quite the year for turnarounds, or at least changing of divisions. And there's been an interesting conversation this week since 281 about the middleweight division, about is this the weakest champion we've ever had, which is having then beaten Adesanya, who is then considered one of the best champions we've had in the middleweight division. It's weird...
Joe, that is fantastic. Let me say, I love UFC and MMA indeed for that.
Yes.
Isn't that just remarkable that that can happen? One man who has figured the game out, he's beaten everybody comfortably. No way to upset this man until you just pull out some anonymous Brazilian from another sport and rise him through the ranks to challenge that unbeatable man. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, we know that Pereira was sort of rushed to the title because no wrestling for you, pal, sort of thing to worry about. And it was the right decision. I think we all kind of accepted that. And now in turn, it's created so much more for us to think about. The fact that we're now looking at it going like, well, if Pereira beats Adesanya again, is he going to face Vettori? Is he going to face Robert Whittaker?
It sounds like you are sticking to your guns. It should be an instant rematch.
Yeah, with Adesanya. Actually, I've got a question here for you. I'm going to give you the line, and I want you to pick over under. Adesanya to face Pereira again, and the line is 2.5 times.
I mean, face him again, just
MMA, kickboxing in their careers.
They will fight again. Yes.
But 2.5 times. Over or under?
Oh, that it'll happen more than 2.5 times?
Yeah.
Oh, 2.5?
Yeah.
I've got to go. It's going to be... It can't be 2.5 times. I'm going under.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I think definite over. I think if one of them goes up and gets the light heavyweight title, then there's so much juice there.
I mean, Adesanya's come out and said one day, in this life or the next, he has to beat Pereira. if he has to go and knock on Pereira's heart in the favela, Adesanya will do it. That's what he said at 60.
That's pretty hilarious. It's one of those as well now that, like, let's say they face each other again in May or June, right? And let's say Adesanya wins. That can't be it then. Like, you can't be like, well, I've won the rivalry. This rivalry is over. It's just like, well, no, that's
But Joe, you're scaring me there, because then I don't. I'm not a fan of this Figueiredo Moreno situation down at flyweight, and especially given that Pereira's got so many men left to fight.
Why isn't Pantoja getting the title shot? Is what we're all thinking.
Which is kind of how I feel a little bit here. Whittaker, he's done everything. Let him fight. Let him fight Pereira. Let Bobby Knuckles be the champion. One more time.
You've just shown what you want, and that's fine. But I'm with you on the instant rematch thing, except in a case like this. It has to be done. It has to be done
because of Adesanya's run.
He was undefeated in the division. He'd basically cleared it out. If he was going to beat Pereira, he was talking about facing Gregory Rodriguez, which is, he's a few wins away from that. Which, by the way, that would have been a sick fight. Still might be. But, he probably would have gone back up to light heavy to face the winner of Prochazka, Teixeira, if Teixeira didn't retire.
All right, let's look at some of the other movements in the rankings. See how you feel about this show. The biggest loser on the night, the man who's dropped the most places.
Well, it's Frankie Edgar. He retired.
Well, sure. He lost a lot in that fight, as did his family and future generations in the counselling fees that will be required.
All right, let's move on from that.
Yes. So, do you know who it is?
Michael Chandler.
No, Chandler is still the UFC's boy. He's sitting pretty still at lightweight, unchanged.
What?
Sarukian, Ismagulov, Gamrot. You lads stay down. Sorry, lads. Chandler's still number 5. He's gone nowhere.
That Dana White privilege is real, isn't it?
It is real. The man who has fallen out of favour, he featured on the prelims, went down in pretty spectacular fashion. It was Dominic Reyes, Joe.
Oh.
He's dropped 5 places. He's down to 12. Span's gone up 2. Ozdemir rising again. Paul Craig, Krylov, they're all going up in the rankings.
By the way, you've just announced what Reyes' next fight should be is Paul Craig, because there's no way he's getting knocked out in that one. Bro, Reyes, he beat John Jones. And then he was viciously knocked out by Blachowicz, viciously knocked out by Prochazka. And by the way, this happened quicker and quicker each time, and then he gets knocked out in the first round by Ryan Spann. Oh my days!
It's quite the fall off.
Has there been a harsher fall off in a fighter?
Tony Ferguson.
Oh.
No, at least Tony's got that locked in. All right, he can get a place in the UFC Hall of Fame just based on that. The most spectacular drop off.
But Tony, at least, apart from Chandler and Diaz, he wasn't finished by Oliveira or Dariush.
Gaethje.
Well, I'm saying that's the initial one. That's like the John Jones loss for Reyes, in a way.
No.
That's the start.
You just said he beat. Come on, Reyes beat Jones.
Yeah, he beat Jones.
He didn't even take big damage.
Jones. He's the only man to beat Jones.
Apart from
Matt Hamill, but Matt
Hamill.
Yeah. Anyway,
remember the name.
Indeed. Oh man, poor Dom Reyes. What about Ryan Spann then?
Ryan Spann, he's into the top 10 now.
Good.
I mean, look, Joe,
he's earned it.
I've had to eat my words. I've had to eat my words. I don't believe it. I
I was always quite soft on his jabroni status, but you were rock hard for it. Like, you were like absolutely raging at the thought of watching this man fight, and now he's really turned it around.
Like his arrogance in line with his performances and losses, that was a big turn off for me. And he continued in that vein by saying he hadn't trained for a fight before this moment. That's frustrating. That's frustrating, but I respect what Reyes has done. In the game, I still hope he's got more to give. And, when Span puts him away like that, I know it's a tough look for Reyes.
I think he should consider a change in career. Maybe go back to being an IT teacher or something like that. Like,
isn't he the man who said he was like elite level jogger or something like that?
No, he played football to a high level.
And baseball, right?
And baseball.
It was just like, I'm an all-round athlete.
Yeah, I do 40 minutes on the treadmill, on the exercise bike, on the Peloton. Do you remember that in the embedded UFC thing? No, not the embedded, the countdown. Where he's just like, I'm doing my Jones tape, and he's watching a John Jones fight as he rides on the exercise bike for about half an hour, and it's just like
I do recognise that.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, I mean, he was a bit deficient in charisma, Reyes.
Yeah,
but he's saying he wants to keep going.
Yeah, fine. I mean, can I go back to the exercise bike thing? Is that worse than the Henry Cejudo coach motivational book?
That was amazing. so yes, it was. That was amazing. I mean, let's be honest. Cejudo went and did it.
That's true. Actually,
you can get away with this nonsense
if you win.
If you win, you could. The people will love you for it.
That's true. So now, if Prohashka loses to share it, everyone's going to be like, "Why did you sit in that dark room for 3 days with no food?"
Are you an idiot? Yeah, exactly. Or it's like, "Oh, what an inspiration! He's so stoic."
This guy's a
Bushido.
real samurai. Yeah, exactly. Right, listeners, you can tell that we're really excited to talk about Derrick Lewis versus Sergey Spivak, but we actually are. Let's talk about it. Derrick Lewis, Sergey Spivak, main event of this week's Fight Night card. Spivak, he's become our boy. It was a bit of a joke at first. He had a bit of a weird introduction to me and you, Tom, of when he smashed Tuivasa. Do you remember that fight where Tuivasa was lying on his side with Spivak mounting him and punching 100%.
upwards? That was his debut after getting knocked out by Walt Harris in his opening fight. Yeah. Went on to fight Tuivasa. Beat Tuivasa, and I was done. I was done with Tuivasa. He was written out of the history books for me. But there's been a lot of turnarounds. You gotta think. Just last reference to Dominic Reyes here. I'm not obsessed. Yeah. You got to look at someone like Tuivasa and how he turned it round. Yeah. Like they're similar men, similar profile in terms of age. I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure Reyes will take some heart from that because the Spiv he beat. I mean, is he the Spiv anymore, Joe? I think he's graduated beyond that.
What, the Spivinator?
The Spivinator.
He's actually. Well, the thing is that like the last 2 wins he's got, which is over Augusto Sakai and Greg Hardy, and everyone was like, yeah, whatever. It's not the fact that he beat them; it's how he beat them. Like he demolished them,
mushed them,
truly mushed them. Yeah, he lost to Aspinall, but Aspinall's, he's different gravy. He's tremendous. Maybe Spivak can get back to that level of facing an Aspinall, and I think he probably will. I just really like finishing instinct.
You're inferring that Derrick Lewis is not in that band of heavyweights with Aspinall.
No, he's definitely not. If Aspinall faced Lewis would get smashed.
But Aspinall is ranked 6th, Derrick Lewis 7th.
Yeah, but
could be a matchup.
Yeah, but he's got that UFC cred because Derrick Lewis has said funny things in the past and knocked people out in hilarious fashion. Also,
Joe, moving on to Derrick Lewis just briefly here, the man is 8-0 fighting in Vegas.
Is he?
8-0 with some big names in that 8. Knocked out Volkov.
Oh.
Yeah. Knocked out Dorcas.
Yeah.
Knocked out Blades.
Olenek.
Knocked out Olenek.
Yeah.
I mean, put some respect on his name, Joe.
All right, I'll give that. He beat Ngannou in Vegas. He's got great wins. All right, yeah, I'll put some respect on there. I will also point out he has lost his last 2 fights. He's lost 3 of his last 4. And in those fights, it was against guys that had just surpassed him in the division. Cyril Gane, that was just a layup for Cyril Gane, really, of like, go make a name for yourself against Derrick Lewis, who blew it in his hometown. Then he had the Tuivasa one where it looked like, he's turned it around, he did a bit of wrestling, and then that incredible shot of like he's unloading on Tuivasa head against the cage, and Tuivasa just gritting his teeth, going like, "I'm getting you back for this," and somehow getting through it and knocking him out. And then the loss to Pavlovich, where he got up straight away, but he was starting to. He went face down, arse up, and was starting to slowly slide off into unconsciousness.
So my feeling is what I've taken from these fights is a bit different to you, Joe, because I still look at the knockout over Chris Daukaus, sandwiched in between those losses, a man who was also on a good run in the division, and I think the Tuivasa one, it could have been stopped. Maybe Mark Goddard, if he's going to keep the same line of reffing as he did with Adesanya, he would stop that fight. Where Lewis is unloading and Tuivasa's not really defending properly against the cage. Yeah. And then I look at Pavlovich, who is quite the specimen, Joe. Yeah. I think he's going to give a few old names some big problems. Yeah. Very fast, accurate, powerful striker at heavyweight. And I think it's a little harsh on Derrick to be writing him off. The thing is, Sergey Spivak, he's looked damn good.
He's looked really good. And if you think about their weapons as well, like, Spivak's much more well-rounded. He's got really good wrestling as well. Really good trips. Yes. Really good trips.
Judo throws.
Trips against the cage are really good. So what Derrick Lewis has is that he's got a left hand which he kind of pours out there so you can find some kind of range so you can swing this bowling ball right hand behind it.
Beautiful.
The switch kick to close the distance, and then throws the right hand
to build momentum.
Yeah, build momentum. Swings the right hand, and then he swings the left, coming back the other way, kind of like rock and sock and robot.
Be honest, this is one of the great sights in UFC.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Iconic.
When he flows, when he's in that flow state, there's no one like it. It's like when Tony's marching someone down, front kick to the body, elbows coming inside. Tremendous. There's nothing quite like it. My thinking is that like I could see Derrick Lewis throwing a switch kick, landing, and Spivak timing a takedown off of that, and then just getting mushed on the ground. And I actually do think that's what's going to happen. I think Spivak will put him away, probably within the first 2 rounds.
I've got to say, I feel the same. But it's not a comment on Lewis. I still think if Lewis continues to fight, he'll upset some of these young boys. And it wouldn't. Come on, Joe. Spivak shoots. Lewis throws in an uppercut. Yeah, that's all she wrote. You can believe that. You can see that.
For sure. And I also think there is the danger that, like, if he loses to Spivak, some young gun's thinking like, "Well, I'm going to get this guy now before his name's totally gone," and not being ready for it. Lewis is, despite his limited amount of skills, is very skilled in those talents that he has, including getting up, where he can literally just get up sometimes, which is madness. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that against Spivak, though. I just think those inside-outside trips that he's able to get, and he hits both. He chains them together as well. Like, it's very rare to see that heavyweight, see someone chain takedowns.
He's also, he doesn't need the explosion to get it, which is a big factor. And he's also very measured on the ground, which is not something we see at heavyweight either. So
For sure. So I think we've both gone for Spivak there. Anything else on this main card that excites you in any way? Ion Cutelaba versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. Cutelaba is on a bit of a rough run, but Nzechukwu's got some dodgy losses on his record as well. Cutelaba, he lost to Johnny Walker in the last fight, didn't he? And Ryan Spann before that. He's in just in a bit of a weird spot, isn't he? Because it's like he's lost to guys that are better than the guys Nzechukwu's lost to. Nzechukwu lost to Darton Jun and my man Nikolai Nega Moreno. Said it correctly that time. The difference is that, actually, is the difference that big between those 4 fighters? Probably not, actually.
Can either of these go further than where they're sat right now, which is just outside the rankings?
Ion, no. Maybe Kennedy could get in there, but I don't know how far he would get.
I'm not convinced. I guess that's what I'd be hoping for this fight, is that if there is someone who can kind of
someone to show you something that you've not seen before.
Yeah, Ion is solidified in this kind of meme status, but I don't expect a whole lot more than that. Next fight on the card, Joe, it's a heavyweight bout between Chase Sherman and Waldo Cortez Acosta.
Acosta's undefeated, isn't he? I mean, Chase Sherman, you know what you're going to get. He's coming to bang, bro. I've come to bang, and
we're expecting some slop, aren't we?
I am expecting some slop, and you know what? I will savour it when I see it. Let's talk about Muslim Salikov versus Andre Filiau.
Now, this is the pick of the fights on the card for me.
Yeah, in terms of competitive fights, for sure.
Yeah, guys with a legitimate profile who've had some good moments in the UFC. Obviously, the Kung Fu King Salikov and his spinning kicks. Had some good moments. Not least of all against Trinaldo, who's been an issue for many a fighter.
Yeah,
Nordine Taleb. I don't know. He had a 5 fight streak going into meeting the Leech. Leech put on a great performance. So a man again who's just kind of hovering outside the rankings.
Yeah, against Filiau, who is a strong boxer. He's got a 2-2 record in the UFC. The thing that we maybe have to see with Filiau is that he's going to have to try and press Salikov so that he can't throw those kicks. You know, that when people face Barbosa, it's just like you can't give him the kicking range. You can't let him sort of set to throw those kicks. Salikov doesn't need a lot, though. That's the difference with someone like Barbosa.
Yeah, that is the interesting one. Yeah, he doesn't load up quite as much, and he can pull them out of slightly different positions to Barbosa, who really wilts under the pressure, unfortunately.
For sure.
Now, the thing is, Filiau, he's got no problem applying forward pressure, Joe. If anything, what we've seen from him is too much forward pressure.
Yeah, well, he had his debut where he lost to Michel Pereira, and then in his last fight, he lost to Jake Matthews,
who looked phenomenal.
He did look very good. In between that, he has a win over Miguel Baeza and then Cameron Van Camp. Interesting thing is that the Baeza, Van Camp, and Matthews fight all happened within the space of 3 months. He was really trying to get some quick turnover within the UFC, make a bit of a name for himself. And I think he probably hit a wall of just damn, I actually can't do this that much. This is insane. But I feel that Matthews and Pereira are a step above Baeza and Van Camp, probably.
Oh.
I mean Baeza is retired now.
Yeah, but he looked pretty great.
He did look great, but he just didn't have it in the mental side. You know, and I feel like a loss to Salikov will kind of confirm Filiau's place for the time being. You know, of fun action fighter.
I'd put it in starker terms than that. I say a loss to Salikov confirms Filiau's ceiling for me. Yeah. In a definitive sense.
But now, Pereira and Matthews are very good, though. That's the thing, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe it's a bit early to write him off, though. I mean, he's only 28.
Well, this is just what I'm saying. Salikov for me represents a certain level.
Yeah.
And I think Filiau can surpass that level.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. Particularly if he, fights to the game plan of you just pressing this guy. I mean, of course he is going to do that. That is his style. He's also been working at AKA, so I think his wrestling is going to improve as well from there. So maybe we might see a bit of mixing that up. And that also, as is always the case, if you start showing that, then that might open opportunities up top for the hands. Interesting fight. It's a really good barometer fight for sure.
It is, and Filiau, he is boxing heavy. Yeah. I wonder if he'll have introduced some other elements to his game. Obviously, expecting Salikov to spin, expecting him maybe to be hard to land on up top.
Maybe if he throws to the body.
I would like to see that.
Yeah, for sure. Right, let's talk about this fight, and particularly one fighter in particular, Jack Della Madallena. I love me a bit of Della Madallena. 2 first-round knockouts this year in the UFC. Pete Rodriguez and Ramazan Emeev. One was the liver shot on the Teixeira Prochazka card. He is so slick on the feet.
What do you like in particular about Madalena's game on the feet?
Do you know what it is? I like how he measures. He's not just charging in. He picks his shots, and then he will with the Emeev fight, he was working him to the body, but it's he wasn't hitting him, landing on the body at the same point. It was either sometimes at the beginning, at the combination, or at the end. He would throw nice single shots in there as well. It's really interesting, and he has really good complexity and depth to his striking that I think a lot of fighters could probably learn from.
Yeah, you're not alone in that view, Joe. We got Jack Slack, another podcast that we've referenced quite a few times on Hold On, I'm Talking Brother. He's done a couple of technical breakdowns on Madalena. He's got a few pointers on what to look out for. So we'd point listeners in that direction to get a bit more there. He's fighting Danny Roberts, who's one of those guys who's just... He's fighting on the undercards. He's in the early prelims. And before you know it, he's fought 12 times in the UFC.
Since 2015.
It's since 2015, Joe. Yeah.
Who is the highest ranking guy he's faced?
I'd say the biggest name on there is I mean, he's fought Michel Pereira.
Yeah.
Mike Perry.
Okay.
And Trinaldo.
Was the
he lost all three of those fights.
Was the Pereira one Pereira's debut?
It was the flying knee.
Yeah, that was his debut where he was running off the cage and doing all sorts of nonsense.
Wiling out.
That was brilliant. I loved that fight so much. But they both got wins over Amiv. Yep. Saying that, though, Roberts has a split decision win, which is obviously not as impressive. I think we're expecting Della Madallena to get a nice first round victory here, aren't we?
Well, let's be honest here. That's partly because Danny Roberts has fought 12 times in the UFC, and I can't tell you what his biggest weapon is.
Yeah.
I mean, give me one moment that stands out to you.
Anyway, so we got Zaglas Zumagulov versus Charles Johnson. Zumagulov is 1-4 in the UFC. Why is he still here? Against Charles Johnson, who in his debut lost to Muhammad Makayev, but I thought it looked quite good in it. You know, Makayev wasn't able to really get much done. I think Johnson, a bit more seasoning.
I'm interested to see it. This is why, by the way, Zumagulov is still around. For Charles Johnson to build his resume a bit in the UFC, and hopefully he's able to do that. He did look good against Makayev. It's not often a fighter gets kind of comprehensively beaten without getting beaten down, but just neutralized, which is what Makayev was able to do to him. And you end up respecting the other guy all the more for it, and you're curious about his future progression.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's about as close as you're going to get to a can in the UFC as well. Like, they tend not to keep these guys around for too long, but there is a benefit to them. Right. Let's talk about... There's nothing else on this card. We don't want to talk about Ricky Turcios after that.
I refuse to.
That performance last time. Let's talk about a bit of news. So, a bit of fallout from UFC 281. Michael Chandler obviously lost to Dustin Poirier in one of the fights of the year. I think that's fair to say. At least one of the most dramatic fights and one of the most intriguing ones. By the way, did you see Dustin Poirier on Helwani's show?
I didn't.
He talked about the interaction between him and Chandler they had after the fight. I'm going to cut it in right now for listeners to hear.
But I said, this is my house. I said, I respect everything you've done, but this is my house that I built, you know? And then he looks at me, he goes, such a freaking dweeb. He looks at me, right when I say this is my house, he goes, what, Madison Square Garden's your house? Madison Square Garden's your house? He goes, what? Then he points down on the mat, he goes, this logo on the mat, this is your house? And I'm like, I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, all right, bud. Okay, bud.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, the beef that sort of stewed between these two and continues to stew. And also Poirier's rather hilarious impression of Chandler. Tom, anyway, Chandler lost, and he gets called out immediately by Eddie Alvarez, who is a free agent. Is there any interest in you in watching Eddie Alvarez come back to the UFC? Because apparently there's not much interest from the UFC.
Like, Alvarez could have stayed in the UFC and been in the discussion with the likes of Chandler, Poirier, Gaethje, McGregor, kind of these guys who have been hovering around the top of the lightweight division.
We could have had Oliveira versus Alvarez.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you know, Alvarez didn't take that path. He had a very hard time outside of the UFC. I think he's getting on a little bit now. Never really had the kind of charisma of Chandler.
No,
it was more his fighting style that he was able to deliver. No, I think Chandler can do better than that matchup.
You think it's McGregor fight, maybe?
I really think so. I like it, Joe. I like it. I want it.
I would honestly consider bringing Alvarez back, and I'd bring him as this sort of, like, I don't know, like, pay-per-view main card guy. you're getting 3 rounds, and you're getting Alvarez versus Oliveira, you're getting Alvarez versus Gamrot. You're getting, one of these guys that could maybe just be a really great entertainment fighter.
Joe.
Yeah.
Eddie Alvarez is 38 years old.
I think he's still got something. He's still got a bit of juice.
We don't need another Nate Diaz, Tony Ferguson sad story in the UFC.
You're right. Yeah, if he comes back and loses 3 times and it brutally to like Sarukian, Gamrot, and Ismagulov, you're like, Jesus Christ, was that worth it, Eddie?
No.
Yeah, fair enough.
Now, you mentioned the word juice.
Yes.
If he was allowed to do that, then maybe it could work.
Yes,
but
indeed.
In the absence of juice and the presence of USADA, I think Alvarez's time in the UFC is done.
Yes. Let's talk about one more piece of news, and then we're gonna head off, listeners. Gilbert Burns has been talking about his fight with Masvidal. Now, apparently they wanted to get it done for November, and apparently Masvidal wasn't going to be ready. They said December. No, let's do it in Brazil in January, Masvidal says. Well, apparently that's not happening either. Now, Tom, Masvidal then came out this week and said, let's do it on the same card as Usman versus Edwards 3. Now, you can see what Masvidal's trying to do here. If one of those guys falls out of the main event fight, well, I'm ready to go, boss. Don't worry about me. I can get right in there. That's pretty much the game that he's going to go for.
Well, likewise, if he is able to pull off a win over Burns and Edwards beats Usman, then Masvidal's going to be sat right there, ready for the call out of Leon.
I think that's also probably what is going to happen for sure. Like, it's just, I mean, Leon has said, if he wins, I will face Masvidal next. And it's like, Leon, mate, that is bull.
That is bull. But he, of course, was the forgotten man for so long. It's hard to resent him for now playing the game. Now he's in that position.
I would do the
easy
same.
Money, baby. Easy money.
Oh, yeah, he would work Masvidal.
Problem is, there's no way Masvidal beats Burns. So
yeah, I think Burns he would probably take him down at will, wouldn't he, and just do whatever he wanted. It would be a fun fight on the feet, though, as long as it lasted there. All right, let's remove that sort of thinking from the time being. Do you actually think Masvidal fights in the first half of next year?
I mean, he's another man who you could imagine being matched up with Conor, given Conor's enhancements.
Just do it. Like, who cares? Who cares, honestly? Like, if Masvidal faces Burns and he loses, and then he faces McGregor, do you think anyone would really... Actually, maybe they would start to care at that stage. I don't know. I mean, He had such a great 2019, and it was a perfect stars-aligned moment that made him a superstar. And I don't know, does he have that Nate Diaz level of like charisma where losses don't matter to him? Because it seems to really matter to him when he loses. Like, you look at him after that Covington fight, he looked crestfallen. Yeah.
I mean, this is another man. He's the wrong side of 38.
Yeah.
Which we should say happy birthday. That was just 6 days ago. Jorge turning 38. No, but he's entered the meme fighter dimension. But he's still got a bit of pop. You'd back him to beat someone like Lawler or of course, Diaz. Alvarez if he was up at 170. Masvidal, he's the top of the tier in that tree. But if you're going to put Conor and Chandler in that grouping, those are some fun matchups.
Are you coming around to my idea of Chandler versus Masvidal?
I mean... I'm thinking it over. It seems a shame for Michael Chandler because he's still fun, kind of near to the top of the division.
Well, he says he's one win away from getting back into the title contention. Not a title shot, but title contention.
It's quite
I don't disagree.
Well, losses don't seem to affect Michael Chandler. And actually they don't, Like the matchup with Gaethje didn't discredit Chandler. It was like, God, that guy's fun.
Yeah.
And Masvidal is fun with the right matchups, as perhaps Conor can be too. So, okay, I'll allow it. I'll let it in.
Fair enough. Yes. Is there anything else we really want to talk about here? Oh, this is something I wanted to bring up. I'm annoyed, Tom. UFC 282 is happening in 3 weeks, headlined by Prochazka versus Teixeira. And you've got some banging, fun fights on the entire card. Buckley versus Chris Curtis. We know that's our number one fight of the night. I do not care about any other fight other than that one. Come on, Joaquin. You got Darren Till versus Dricus du Plessis. Okay, a fun fight. But neither
Bryce Mitchell, Topuria.
That's incredible. On the main card, confirmed now for the main card. Did you see this? On the main card, ahead of those first two fights I mentioned, is Robbie Lawler versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. I mean, Jesus. Do they know something that maybe Robbie's hanging it up and that they're giving him this pay-per-view send-off?
I would say headline the prelims. Some names people will tune in for. A perfect spot for them. Shouldn't be on the main card.
It annoyed me. It really annoyed me.
But, the Buck, Joe, you can't hold him down. The young Buck. Like, they tried this bullshit in Paris, and look what happened. He came on the main card, and he stole the show.
He did indeed.
He cannot be suppressed, and I expect the same thing again here.
My God. You know what's going to happen? He's gonna win that fight with Curtis, and then he's going to cut an absolute fire promo. He's going to cut an incredible promo, and then face whoever, knock them out, title shot, gets Pereira out of there. Can you imagine the physics? The physics.
That's such a comedic matchup. Oh my God, I cannot imagine that.
Oh my
Pereira
God.
and Buckley being in the same division is hard enough for me to deal with. But them standing in the ring together.
What about this? Let's say Pereira loses to Adesanya in the rematch, and Buckley wins 2 fights there. You just do it, man. Just do it. What are we waiting for? Buckley versus Pereira. Pereira's head next to Buckley's would be ridiculous. Like the size of it. The size of his cranium is ridiculous.
His head matches Buckley's torso and upper body. I think they position together, and then you add Pereira's legs, and you got a kind of freak show matchup.
That's real.
Which way do you lean, Joe?
I don't know. Buckley says he can wrestle, so that's that would be interesting. Could he even get to the legs? That would be.
Bitch, I wrestle too, ho. God, I love that man.
I love him so much. Anyway, listeners, ending on a high. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week, probably, to talk about this card and to talk about the glory that was Sergey Spivak. Tom, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Joe.
And listeners, contact us at holdonbrother69@gmail.com if you wish. Hit like, hit subscribe, do all that good stuff. Goodbye, and see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.